Snowflakes drifted through the quiet streets on Christmas Eve. In a corner of the town square, a man in his early 40s sat alone on a bench, dressed in a fine coat yet carrying an emptiness no wealth could hide. His name was Richard, once surrounded by friends, laughter, and family, but now, success had only bought him silence. Not far away, a boy of barely 12 ran toward him. His coat was too thin for the cold, his shoes worn, but his smile glowed brighter than the Christmas lights. The boy stopped, holding a small paper bag of bread and soup, his family's humble dinner. "Sir," the boy said shyly, would you like to join us for Christmas dinner? It's not much, but Mama says no one should be alone tonight." Richard lifted his head, startled. For years, he had received invitations to grand feasts, charity galas, and glittering parties, but no one had spoken to him with such pure kindness. The boy's simple words broke through walls Richard had built around his heart. His vision blurred as tears welled. You want me there?" he whispered. The boy nodded eagerly. "Of course. Mama always says Christmas is about family, even the family you find along the way." For the first time in years, Richard felt something stir inside him, not loneliness, but hope. Slowly, he rose from the bench and followed the boy, unaware that this night would change his life forever. The boy led Richard through narrow streets dusted with snow, humming softly as if Christmas itself lived in his heart. Richard, walking beside him, felt strangely nervous, more nervous than he had ever been when signing business deals worth millions. They reached a small, weather-worn house at the edge of town. Its windows glowed with warm yellow light, though the curtains were patched and the roof sagged. The boy flung the door open and called out, "Mama! Look who's coming to dinner." Inside, the room was tiny but filled with laughter. A woman in her late 30s stood by the stove, stirring a pot of stew. Two younger children sat near the fireplace, giggling as they tried to decorate a small, crooked Christmas tree with scraps of ribbon and homemade ornaments. When Richard stepped in, the warmth of the room wrapped around him like a blanket. The woman turned, slightly startled, before the boy explained, "Mama, he was sitting all alone. I invited him. You said no one should spend Christmas lonely." She studied Richard for a moment, then smiled gently. "You're welcome here, sir. Please, make yourself at home." Richard swallowed hard. No one had spoken to him like that in years, not with politeness born of business, but with genuine kindness. He looked at the stew bubbling on the stove, the cracked plates set on the table, the children giggling as they hung paper stars, and for the first time in decades, he felt something priceless, belonging. He sat down slowly, his eyes damp. The boy whispered beside him, "See? I told you. Family." And in that humble little house, Richard felt his lonely walls begin to crumble. The table was small, barely enough space for the mismatched plates and bowls, yet the room radiated more joy than Richard had ever felt in his mansion. The stew was simple, vegetables stretched thin, a bit of bread on the side, but the children clapped their hands as if it were a feast fit for kings. "Let's say grace," the boy's mother said softly. Everyone bowed their heads. She prayed not for wealth or gifts, but for health, warmth, and gratitude. When she ended with, "And thank you for bringing us new friends tonight," Richard's throat tightened. He glanced at the children beside him. Their eyes sparkled with excitement, their laughter unrestrained. They offered him the biggest portions, even though he knew they had little to spare. One of the younger ones giggled, "You can sit by us every Christmas, mister. You smile funny, but I like it." Richard laughed, a sound he hadn't heard from himself in years. It wasn't the polite chuckle he used at business dinners. It was real, unguarded, almost childlike. As they ate, the boy leaned toward him and whispered, "You know, I didn't think you'd say yes. Most people don't notice us." Richard's spoon froze midair. For a moment, he couldn't answer. He had been so consumed with his own loneliness that he had forgotten the quiet struggles of others. This little family had so little, yet they had given him everything he had been missing: kindness, laughter, and love without conditions. He put his spoon down, his eyes stinging. "Thank you," he said, his voice breaking. "You don't know what this means to me." The mother reached across the table, placing her hand gently over his. "Sometimes," she said softly, "the best gifts don't come wrapped in paper." After dinner, the children crowded around the crooked Christmas tree, proudly showing Richard the ornaments they had made from paper, twine, and bits of colored foil. Laughter echoed in the room, but Richard sat quietly, watching with moist eyes. The boy's mother noticed and asked gently, "Are you all right?" Richard took a shaky breath. "It's been a long time since I've seen a Christmas like this. You see, I grew up in a house not too different from yours. We didn't have much, but we had each other. My parents are gone now. And somewhere along the way, as money came, I lost the people who mattered most." The room fell silent. The children looked at him with wide eyes, and the mother's expression softened with understanding. He continued, voice trembling, "I thought wealth could fill the emptiness. I threw parties, bought houses, traveled the world. Yet every Christmas, I sat alone. Until tonight." The boy crawled closer and slipped his small hand into Richard's. "You don't have to be alone anymore," he said with innocent certainty. "You can sit with us, even if you're rich. We don't care." Richard let out a shaky laugh, tears slipping freely now. "You don't know what that means to me." The mother's voice was steady, warm. "Maybe it was meant to be, you finding your way here tonight. Sometimes God answers prayers in the most unexpected ways." Richard nodded, his heart swelling. For the first time in decades, he felt like he belonged, not because of his wealth, but because of who he was, scars and all. And in that tiny living room, surrounded by paper stars and children's laughter, Richard realized he had been given the greatest Christmas gift of all: family rediscovered. The snow continued to fall outside, but inside, the room glowed with warmth and laughter. Richard sat by the fire, watching the children unwrap tiny handmade gifts they had made for each other. He felt a peace he hadn't known in years, a sense of belonging that money could never buy. "Would you like to see our tree outside?" the boy asked. They stepped into the cold backyard, and Richard noticed it wasn't much, just a scraggly evergreen decorated with twinkling lights and homemade ornaments, but it shone brighter than any chandelier he had ever owned. Richard smiled, a thought forming in his heart. "I have something for you, too," he said, reaching into his coat pocket. He handed the mother an envelope. "It's not just for tonight. I want you all to have a home, warm and safe, whenever you need it." Her eyes widened, and she shook her head. "We can't accept that." "You've given me more than I've had in years," Richard said. "You showed me that family isn't about money, it's about love, laughter, and kindness. Let me help you in return." Tears filled her eyes as the children cheered. That night, Richard realized that wealth without love had left him hollow, but generosity and connection could fill any emptiness. They spent the evening sharing stories, singing carols, and making snow angels in the yard. Richard laughed until his cheeks hurt, the boy's words echoing in his mind, "You don't have to be alone anymore." As he walked home later, the cold no longer bit at him. For the first time, he carried warmth within, a gift he would cherish every Christmas to come. And so, a lonely rich man discovered the true meaning of the season, that kindness, selflessness, and an open heart could transform lives, sometimes in just one unexpected evening.